Welcome to Sam's Business Growth Show. I'm Sam Dunning, a digital marketing, sales, and business growth evangelist. Tune in and subscribe today as I'll be interviewing business leaders, experts, and entrepreneurs from around the globe. You'll be learning their story, how digital marketing has helped them along the way, and exclusive tips and insights to help you skyrocket your own business. Welcome back to the show. I am delighted to have joining me today Jake Dunlap. Jake is the founder and CEO at Skaled Consulting. He's a C-level sales leader and highly sought after industry thought leader. He's been featured in Forbes, Inc., the GaryVee audio experience, and Huff Post. Jake was the first VP of sales at Glassdoor, which then had a $1.2 billion acquisition in May of 2018. Plus, he was the first sales leader at NoWait, acquired by Yelp back in March 2017, and he has a whopping 35k LinkedIn followers. Jake, how are you doing, man? Welcome to the show.
I'm doing great, man. I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome, dude. So there's loads that we want to cover today. We want to learn a whole bunch from your good self, including your top business growth tips, how digital marketing's helped you along the way, and your recommended digital marketing strategies for any sales professionals or business leaders listening. But let's start from the top, Jake, if we may.
Let's do it, man.
Yeah, I'd love to learn your story. So ever since leaving school, where you grew up and how you got into the business world, Jake.
Yeah, cool. I'm happy to do it. So, look, I'll start. I grew up in the Midwest, went to school in the Midwest, and was really a big fan of professional sports. So I'm actually ironically here at the New York Jets facility in New Jersey right now. If you guys can get like a view on that. I don't know if you'll.
Awesome, man. What are you up to there?
Here working with them and meeting with the Giants later, be at Madison Square Garden tomorrow. So we actually do quite a bit of business in sports. Where really helping, our organization, what we do now, and to skip ahead, a little bit, but I'll come back to it, is, we work with companies that are trying to either modernize their sales approach or trying to build out more scalable, processes, whether that's around demand generation, sales, et cetera. And so sales organizations in particular, are really starting to kind of step up to the plate and really think about, modernizing their approach. So if you're in sports, you're used to calling in and saying, "Hey, I'm a sports team, meet with me." And, as there's more alternatives than ever, they're modernizing the way that they're doing things. So we've got a lot of clients in the space, and I'd actually just hired someone full-time who's dedicated to it. So I'm kind of getting back to my roots, man, from, that's where I started my game. And now, we just added someone full-time who's going to be doing it. So,
amazing
for me, man, it was, I just realized, I went into tech sales after sports for 4 years, was a VP of sales at Glassdoor. Like you said, VP of sales is another startup. And, I just realized that I was not a very good employee. I was like a mediocre employee that I was extremely good at the work, but not really good at executive, politics and things like that, which I realized and it's not a negative thing. A lot of people, you hear politics, you're like, oh, that's, shitty. But there is these different things. And that just wasn't my jam. And realize look, I think I can help a lot of companies, with the skill set that I have, and, train a lot of people to be able to, internally to be able to help deliver that, and purposely didn't want to start a sales training company. I saw there's, too many people doing that. And also, too many people, it's I wanted to drive results. And so that's why I started a consulting company. And so
Awesome.
Fast forward 7 years, we've got about 25 people in New York, Austin. We have 2 offices, and then, remote. And so continuing to grow and help organizations scale their sales and marketing efforts.
Fantastic stuff. Okay. So you said before, did you say you were doing sports in college, Jake, or was it in school, or?
No, look, for me, it was interesting. I did say when I was in college, I did telemarketing. I did a whole bunch of stuff. So I kind of got into sales, kind of by accident. Those are the jobs that paid really, really well.
Yeah.
And then, that was kind of my first entree into sports, that, they're always hiring salespeople. And so
I see.
from there, I kind of 2.5 years in realized I really like sales. I enjoy it. I enjoyed, as fortunate, I had a guy who was older than me, and he kind of got me reading books, and, got me I'd always used to love to read, but kind of put it down throughout college. And Brian Ross, shout out to Brian, kind of started feeding me all these books, and started to see, man, sales is so much more of a science. So is marketing, and read a lot of marketing books too. And it really just got me interested in kind of the science, and people move in predictable ways, but, kind of perfectly unpredictable ways. And, how the messaging and how you get people to move, all of that stuff became just super, super interesting for me.
Awesome, man. So it'd be good to learn before the steps that you took before you started up your own consulting business. It'd be cool to learn some of the lessons you learned along the way in terms of
Sure.
your sales game and your business game. So yeah,
Too
so
many to
what,
count, man.
yeah, well, let's go through some of the main ones. I mean, if you could take us through, so you say you fell into the sales
Yeah, for
world,
sure.
just like myself, and just like I'm sure many of the people listening, and many of the sales professionals listening in, most of us did fall in there somehow. Mainly because we had our eyes set on the price. So we saw big bucks and commission checks, and we thought, yeah, I
Sure.
want a slice of that. So it'd be cool to learn some of the roles that you've had along the way before you set up
Yeah.
your own biz, and what
Yeah,
you
definitely.
learned and the lessons you learned in terms of business tips and things.
Yeah, I'll kind of walk you through it. So I had so many oh God, I thought I was great, right, for a long time. So I'll tell you I think I'll kind of try to give you some highlights and things I think people will think is funny or interesting. I always had problems with authority, right? And so, which was both has served me extremely well because I'm always looking for new ways to do things, that are like out of the box. What I realized early in my career is like, you should take the best practices from everyone else, never start from zero. Like, why start iterating from zero? And then, just start to iterate from there, which is both, I had bosses where that worked really well and it didn't. So started off in, frontline sales role, in group sales, quickly moved in within a year and a half. I was managing with another guy, the inside sales team at the Tampa Bay Rays. So, and really, what made me successful early on in my sales career was like, my threshold for uncomfortableness and to make people uncomfortable is extremely high. That,
Has it always
I am
been that way?
okay getting weird. I don't know if it's always. I think like whenever I did telemarketing in college, I sold vacation packages and
Okay.
long distance at one time. Like, you have to get a human being to give you their credit card number over the phone. And so I kind of was cheating. By the time I got graduated and got into real, like professional sales, like I had a skill set that these guys just didn't have. And so, because you've got to get people to move, to take action. Like, that's marketing, that's sales, right? It's not
That's right.
information giving, right? If you want to be an information giver, then how about I'll cut your pay by 75%, right? Marketing and sales, like, we got to get people to take action. And so, progressed quickly in sales, moved over to Tampa. I learned a first lesson there about managing up. Like, that was a good one. I ended up getting fired from the Coyotes. I was the number one person in premium seat sales. And, we had a boss that got real friendly with, he'd go out and drink with us and stuff. And I told him to
Sure.
F off in an email, like joking. And he didn't take it that way, and he fired
Oh
me.
man.
And so he didn't
And you
take it
got
that way.
fired
And
for that?
so, yeah, I did. I did.
Wow. Okay.
But what it taught me is I needed to learn the lesson because I thought it was God's gift to sales, right? Because I was crushing everyone. Like, I was but I just didn't realize, like, look, it doesn't matter how good you are. Like, if you're an asshole, like, you're going to get fired. Like, and so, like, it helped me with that. I probably didn't learn the
Took you
100% the
back down
lesson.
to a level to say
Yeah. Like, well, a good one, right? It's my first kind of
a
professional
big
lesson. I
slice
was
of
like,
humble pie.
oh my gosh, I thought my life was over. I remember like listening to Train on CD crying, like, oh my God, it's all over, like, it's a very real insight. And then, got into tech sales at a company called Career Builder. And they just did so much for me from a career standpoint. They invested in me. I moved into leadership relatively quickly. But the way that I got there, I think, is something that your audience can resonate with. I had a really good director of sales there,
Okay.
and coming out of the training class, I was like, there was like 8 of us, I think, and I was the last. I think I was the last or second to last person. I hadn't sold anything. It's like a month and a half in, and I'm like, dude, I don't know what's going on. Like, I am this amazing seller. And, I think he took the time to listen to the call. I can't remember exactly what it was, but, he listens to the call and he goes, Jake, he goes, you're not like following the process. I'm like, the process. I'm like, that's for those other guys. Right. And, he said, look, Jake, do you think we're stupid? And I was like, well, what do you mean, Evan? Because, Jake, we train thousands of people on this process. Like, do you think we're stupid? Do you think that we're training people on a process that does not work? And it was like a massive light bulb moment for me. I'm like, well, probably not. So I was like, okay. He's like, just drink the Kool-Aid. He's like, just do it. And then sure enough, the next month I closed 60,000 in new business.
Oh man.
Right.
I
And
think we've all
so
been guilty of that though, Jake. Like, we've all got into a kind
totally.
of slump where it doesn't matter if you're a sales rep or if you own a business, and we've all been guilty of just cruising along, having a good few months of sales, and then all of a sudden everything drops. You can't seem to close any deals. Everything goes to a standstill. And then it's like, what do I do? I've always done it this way. And like you say, you've got to go back to the
it,
start,
man.
back to the process. What was that process that particular organization followed? Was it a specific one, Jake, or?
I don't know. I don't know. No, it was like maybe like a mix of a little bit of spin. It was
Yeah.
before Challenger sale existed, but it was actually a very kind of Challenger sale type sale where, we were with Career Builder, we'd call in and be like, look, there's active job seekers, passive job seekers. We have partnerships with all these sites, and more and more people don't go to job sites who, they go to Google or they go to these other sites, to trucking jobs. And we own all those sites. So where all these like very specific passive people are. And so it was a very awesome talk track in retrospect. And, something that when we work with clients, there's, it's a mutation of some of that. And so, they really taught me that process of how to do a proper discovery and why you ask the questions the way you ask them, and then how to transition between the discovery and how you talk about what you do, and then how to close on the, the first deal or get the next meeting. And so there's a very kind of specific process and scripting they had for really each step.
Awesome. And if
so
you got,
I just started executing.
Step in, Jake, in terms of discovery, because that's something I've not touched on that much in terms of this podcast so far. So I'd love to know your recommendations for the best way to carry out discovery stages for any business when they're talking to a potential customer.
Love it. Yeah, absolutely. That's an easy one, because the discovery process is probably the part of I did a post on this. If everyone can go follow me on LinkedIn, it's just Jake Dunlap. But I did a post about this actually today.
Cool.
And I talked about, or actually it was last night. It was, the discovery process is boring. Like talking about closing is fun, right? And objection handling, but when people say, hey Jake, they'll come to us as a consulting firm. Hey Jake, how do look, we need to close more deals. Our close ratio is not high. Or Jake, we're getting stuck at the end of the process. I'm like, okay, cool. So you have a discovery problem. They're like, no. I'm like, yes. Like you're not asking the difficult questions up front. And then you're getting late in the deal cycle, and you didn't know that Timmy needed to be involved. You didn't know that this other person, that this other priority is actually number one, because you didn't talk to anybody else. So the discovery process is at the heart, if not the heart of like amazing selling. And so what goes into a good discovery? So I'll maybe back up just to do something a little more controversial for fun.
Yeah, why not? Let's
like how you start the meeting is actually one of the most important pieces. Not enough people talk about this. The way you set an agenda and how you set the tone for the meeting also has an impact on how your meetings progress. So like for me, I'm a big fan of this, like never thank people for their time. It is my biggest pet peeve with sellers when they come in like sycophants. Thank you so much, Sam. I really appreciate you taking the time to meet with me today and taking some time out of your schedule. Like, what does that do to the power dynamic in that you're not a peer, you're like 8 steps below them. Their peers don't come in and say, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate, so how you set the tone to go into the discovery makes a big difference, right? Like if you set that tone and then you start asking me questions after the 4th question, I'm like, look, little guy, right? Like, just tell me what you got. So, we teach companies, how to be excited. Look, I'm excited for the conversation, based on this meeting. I did some prep, and, we work with this company and this company. I think that are relevant. They've had a similar problem set to others in the industries. But first, each company we work with is different. So I want to spend 5 or 10 minutes understanding some of the nuances, with you around XYZ. Then we'll talk a lot about what we do at XYZ. And if it seems like there's a fit, then we'll talk about next steps. Does that work for you? Yes. And they go on. And then the discovery process. So that's the agenda. So cool. Like how you should set a good agenda. And it matters, right? As opposed to like you're just lost and there's no agenda. There's really 3 components.
I can tell you, man,
it happens all the time.
Yeah, when I used to set sales meetings, whether they were virtual, whether they were face to face, or using Zoom, whatever, and not having an agenda, just the amount by setting a Google Calendar invite, making sure there's a clear step agenda of what's going to happen, how long it's going to take, who's going to be involved. That's helped my own personal sales a heck of a lot. So big believer in that. And like you said just now, making sure you're on the same level as your prospect and making sure you keep things on the same level is so key. So no, you carry on, Jake.
Yeah. So the discovery process, there's kind of three pieces. The first one, and this is the one that most people miss, is role and fit. That too often, look, you get a VP of operations. Do you know how many 85,000 different things that can mean? That could mean that they have 0 direct reports. That could mean they have 100. You could mean that operations in this company is this and logistics in that company is Y. And so if you don't spend the first, like, hey, Sam, look, I work with lots of VPs of operations, helping them with XYZ. What are your two core areas of focus at XYZ? Because I know that it can be, a little bit all over the place in terms of what you typically handle. So then I understand who this person is. And then I say, great, tell me about the team. Now I understand the people that are typically involved. As soon as I know that, I know who needs to be involved in the second meeting. Because what nobody tells you and what everyone should tell you is that the whole goal of the first meeting is to get the second meeting. It's not to educate. It's not to do whatever. It's to do what you need to do to get the right people in the room. I think a lot of people don't kind of have that as the goal. So as soon as I know who you are, what your team looks like, I can now drive next steps. If I don't know who you are and who your team is, I can't drive next steps at the end of the first meeting because I don't know who to involve, right? And so role and fit as their first set of questions. And then I go into business challenges at a high level. And then tactically, what are you doing? What are your top 2 goals for 2020 around this? Tell me more. So my pro tips for discovery are, you've got this role and fit section, business goals, and then, what are you doing today stuff. If you go tactical too early, you immediately bring the conversation down to tactical, right? So again, I'm here with the Jets. I'll give a good example. If they start talking about the difference in season tickets with the Jets versus the Giants, you're no longer talking to me about helping my business. We're now comparing tickets. And you don't want that. I don't want that. I don't want people to compare things.
Got
right?
it.
I want it to be about the business challenges I can help you with. So if you can take it tactical after you understand the broader business goals. And then there's a couple of things within the discovery that I think are important. One is recap after every couple questions, make people feel heard.
Sounds good.
Two is after every question, tell me more or why at least once or twice. Most people in the discovery never get to the real issues, the real needs, the real priorities, because they hear one thing and they move on. After every question, okay, great. Hey, John, so one of my top priorities for this year is growing our client base. Okay, great. Why? Why is that a priority for this year? Well, last year we actually had some churn issues. Okay, well, great. Well, what led to the churn issues? Right? Well, this, and this. Right? Okay, well, tell me a little bit more about that. So now you're no longer, helping them to find new clients. You're actually, the real issue was churn in the first 3 months. And that's what all the executives are focused on. So now I don't sell broad churn. I sell reducing, churn in the first 3 months by, 15%.
Got it. All right, Jake.
And if you don't ask those layered questions, you're screwed.
So are we talking about digging deeper into the real meaning of what people are saying? So finding their actual business pains,
yes,
and determining if there is a fit for you both to do business and organize a second meeting.
Yep.
Cool. Okay. Awesome. So those are some really, really nice tips for anyone listening, that whereby your business has to have a sales cycle where you need an exploratory call first, and then you need to move into a second call, whether that's a pitch or presentation, or whether that's
right.
You've got various sales steps to your sales cycle. Awesome. Okay. And is there anything else that we need to add to that, Jake, or is that just about it?
Recap, why 2 times? What else do you need to know if you're trying to run a killer discovery? And then like a grand recap at the end. So great. So from what I hear, I heard this, I heard this, I heard this, I heard this, because that just makes people feel heard and to make sure that you didn't hear incorrectly. So just, I think if you do those things, you can run a good discovery.
Fantastic. Awesome. Okay. So back to your story. So you were at a sales management level now. We were at, and what was happening next?
Sure. Oh yeah, no, I was telling you about, so the not closing a deal. So before I go into that, I'll tell you about, this I think will be really interesting. So same leader. I was an individual contributor. I went to him. He goes, Jake, what are your goals here? I said, well, my goal is to be in leadership. He goes, well, that's not a goal. And I was like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, well, of course, being in leadership is a goal. He's like, no, it's not. He goes, because I control it. And he goes, a goal can't be something that somebody else controls. A goal can only be things that you control. And he said, he's like, so what can you control? You can control your activity every day. Are you putting in the work? You're the reps. So people see you as a leader in activity. Obviously, if you're making the sales, that's table stakes. And I think a lot of reps don't realize that, like hitting the number from your sales number and crushing it, that's like the pre-rec. If you really want to get promoted. And then the third thing was like, are you mentoring and helping other people, leading trainings on your team, really kind of acting as if. And so what it did is it gave me something to anchor to, right? I just said, okay, if my boss's boss, who's the one who makes a decision to promote me, what he cares about is activity, sales, and like mentorship and team impact, I'm just going to do those things. Like I'm just going to do what he told me to do. I'm not going to try to reinvent the wheel. And so what ended up happening, like a month and a half, 2 months later, a leadership position became open. There was a woman, I'd been at the company now for I think 3 months, maybe 4 months. There's a woman who had relocated to Phoenix, had been at the company for 2.5 years. was like next in line to get the leadership position. But when it came down to the interview process, and I put together a whole territory plan, like I went above and beyond, right? Every job I've ever gotten when I was early in my career, this is maybe a little quick pro tip. I put together a territory plan for every single job. When I was in college, I put together a territory plan for how I was going to sell group tickets in Tampa Bay. When I went to got the job with the Phoenix Coyotes, I put together a business plan for how I was planning to position the Coyotes in like the Latino market and something else. And so, do you know, like I did a group interview with the Coyotes. There's 35 people. I was the only person that got hired.
Wow. Okay.
Right. And
you really put in the work there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's not, I mean, of course. And so I put in the work for the territory plan, but more importantly with Evan, I did everything he said. I'm like, look, Evan, so guess what? I am number 1 in the team on activity. I'm number 2 in sales, even though I've only been here for XYZ period. And here are the trainings I've led with the team. And here's my territory plan for what I'm going to do over the next 6 to 12 months with this team. You know what she brought? She's like, I've been here 2.5 years. I'm doing well. I'm a top salesperson, blah, blah, blah. And guess what? I got the job.
Amazing.
Right? And so that taught me a lot about that. Leadership is about managing up just as much as managing down. And so I think that's a really big, important thing for a lot of people to understand when they make that move into leadership.
Yeah, and I think that was a great tip as well, Jake, about when you said talk to the leader, talk about what they're doing, what they recommend you do to take it to the next level.
Just go do it.
Follow it.
Just go do that.
Simple as.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay.
Don't guess.
Cool. So we've talked about some of your roles. So what was the stage where you decided that you're ready to start up your own business, Jake? And how did that come about? What was the inspiration for it, man?
Sure. So it wasn't, I was never, ever someone who's like, oh, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. I'm going to own I honestly had never thought about it. And what happened is I got fired as a VP of sales. Ouch. And oh, dude, it happens. I mean, if you're a VP of sales at a startup, of course you're going to get fired. Like, it's like once the company progresses to certain stages, the same thing for marketing. Like, that's just what happens. There's like, I can count on like one hand, out of tens of thousands of VPs of sales that have went from like first or second VP to like IPO. It doesn't happen. But what I took stock in the things. I said, look, what am I really good at? Well, I'm really good at building processes and foundations and scaling sales teams, et cetera. And like, okay, what am I not good at? Well, again, I was like 32 at the time, right? I'm like, well, I'm not very good at politics, et cetera. And so candidly, it was like, well, what's your other choice, Jake? Like, you have to start your own firm. You know what I mean? It was kind of like, well, like, let's see how it goes. If, if in 6 months I don't have a job, then like, cool, I can always go get a VP of sales job. Like, I've got an amazing track record. And so that was kind of it. I started to think about, that to me was a really big, kind of thing that I think could be, important for people to hear. Is like, you just have to be willing to take stock of where you're at in your life at different moments. And so for me, it was very, like there's kind of a path, like as I laid out the variables, there started to become kind of a path forward. Of like, well, why don't I start this, do it on my own for a little bit, see how I like it. And then, 6 months in, I was like, don't get me wrong, there's opportunities, right? We work with a client, Jake, we want you to be our VP. And there's a couple, like early on where I was like, oh man, there's also a private equity firm that I got really close to going in-house with. Was getting part of it. Like, it was a really sweet deal. And, it ended up being, the employment term, I couldn't work it out. And I was like, I just can't be someone's employee right now. Like, maybe there's a time down the road, maybe if we get acquired or something.
Once you had a taste of that entrepreneurship and that starting your own business.
I'm not good at it. Like, that's, that's the other
dude.
thing. I'm not good at being the like.
Cool.
Like,
so how was it, Jake, to start when you first started the business? So you started by yourself. How did you progress it? How did you scale it up? How did you start employing people? How did you build it up?
Yeah. So, I'll tell you some mistakes that I made early that, they paid for later. Is I wasn't as intentional as I should have been about growth. It's like, hey, do you have money? Yes. Is it remotely sales related? Yep. Let's do a deal. Right. Like, we got into doing outsourced lead generation, all kinds of different shit, man. And, I think for the first 3-4 years, we kind of just like, we're feeling our way of who we're going to be. And probably 2017, 2018, it just, we started to do more and more of who we're not going to be. Well, I didn't want to be a sales training company, so let's not sell one-off workshops anymore. Okay, cool. If it's a current client, it's a little bit different, but, okay, well, now what do we want to do? Well, we want to be focused on this concept of like modern, like sales technology. I saw that as a sector. Okay, well, what is that going to look like? Well, we're going to need people who are experts here. Okay, great.
Got it.
So From my side in particular, a lot of it was trial and error, and I don't think I was as intentional as like I wish I would have been in retrospect. And I think, anyone who's starting their own business or thinking about it, the more intentional you are up front, the more focused. It can feel limiting, like that's a real big, it can feel like, wow, but what about this opportunity? But
I see. Yeah.
when you go small to go big, then that can be, something that that you end up doing, that you end up being successful with. So
Cool. So you decided to really kind of home in on the service that you were offering.
yeah.
And then how did you build it up, Jake? How did you start finding clients and customers and scaling your business to the next level?
Yeah, honestly, I mean, look, let's talk about like LinkedIn and personal brand. I
Yeah,
think
I
there's a
mean,
couple,
on this show,
there's a
we
couple.
love to take the angle of digital marketing. So that was the next stage we were coming to. So we love to
Yeah, I
talk
mean,
about
I'll
how
talk.
digital
Yeah, I'll
marketing
talk.
has helped along the way. I know you're a big fan of
Yeah,
LinkedIn and you post some awesome content. So it'd be great to know the channels that you've honed in on, not necessarily just LinkedIn, but it could
yeah.
be web-based, could be digital marketing based. So let's hear what's helped you and what you
Okay, yeah.
recommend.
So I'll tell you what happened. So we closed a couple of big deals with like Fortune 100, Fortune 500 companies. So that started to give us kind of this idea of like, hey, you know what? Like this work is like really good. Like the work that we're doing with these clients is like good. And Microsoft and LinkedIn and ADP and Ultimate Soft, like all these companies are hiring us. We're like, oh, okay, well, okay, like what should we do? Then I started to look at kind of marketing, right? And we were doing what every good little consulting firm does. You produce ebooks and people download them, and then you produce blogs and people look at them and you spam them, and we saw engagement, man. I just looked at engagement. I looked at like on social and other channels. I'm like, is this really how in 2018 people are consuming content right now? Right? They're like, oh, let me just sit down at this cozy ebook and just like, crush this ebook right now. Or even a blog post, right? And when I just looked at what worked and what didn't, it became very clear to me that LinkedIn organic posts was like stupid free, right? Like, it's like, whoa, that post got 20,000 views. Like, okay, well, how much money is that worth? Well, if LinkedIn's a $50 CPM, like, wait, is that like 4,000? You guys get like $4,000 in free advertising? Like, oh, so how about we stop? So between June of 2018 and June of 2019, we posted 0 blog posts, 0 ebooks. We literally went all in on LinkedIn in particular because my audience is there, right? CEOs, VPs of sales, VPs of marketing, and
Makes
doing
sense.
text-based posts every day. And so last year my post got I think this year will obviously be more, but over 10 million views. Which if you add that up, and you assume like a $50 CPM, it means we got almost $660,000 in free advertising on LinkedIn. And because I've connected with so many sales leaders and CEOs targeted to my direct audience. And LinkedIn organic traffic right now is identical to Instagram and Facebook organic, like, before they flipped it over. And I just feel like it's such an amazing opportunity for people.
100% agree. I mean, my listeners and viewers will know that I absolutely love LinkedIn. I'm on there every day and posting regular content. And like you say, the organic reach has to be snapped up before it dips. So now's the time to fully
That's right.
grasp hold of this opportunity. Awesome. Okay, so you've had some amazing traction on LinkedIn. It sounds like, Jake. Has that
Yeah.
been the number one source for you to generate new business? What other channels are you harnessing to generate new
Yeah.
business?
Well, look, and this is the other problem. We were really trying to boil the ocean, right? I think every firm feels like you need to be everywhere, right? As opposed to like what's your primary platform, and then what's okay to be on life support. So for us now, like the logical extensions, at least we feel, are Twitter's easy, right? Because Twitter we can kind of rehash some of our LinkedIn stuff, and it actually performs really well. So Twitter for us is more about it. I think it's just a place we do a good job of creating engagement. But the place we're super bullish on is YouTube. I already have, I think, 320 plus videos on YouTube, but we're
Nice.
not doing it. But we're not doing any daily shows, things like
Okay.
that, and that'll help to kind of expand it out. We're obviously posting on Instagram stories and things like that every day. So I'd say kind of the next platforms up for us is probably YouTube. Like I said, Twitter for sure is just something that we're kind of constantly on, but we really feel like YouTube can do some things.
Got it. Okay. And are you guys doing much in terms of your website, in terms of things like paid ads? Is that something you look to or utilize to generate leads and
Sure.
business?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, it's kind of a mix. I think one thing that we had struggled with early on is really product. Like, it's really difficult. And I think this is where agencies and consulting firms, struggle, and why paid sometimes for them is difficult. Is like, with an agency or a consulting firm, I'm like, tell me what the problem is, and I'll tell you how we solve it. Right? It's not productized. It's not like something that you can look at and you immediately go like, I have this problem. I need a solution to it. Right? Like, as opposed to like, yes, we need help with our sales efforts. Like, what the that could mean like 800 things, right? And so I think what we've done a good job of, we're kind of positioning a few of our digital products. So one is digital managed services product. One is around B2B basically B2B digital presence, which is, again, B2B right now, business to business sales is the most boring shit on the planet. Is, dude, they're linked. You go and look at it. So we did an audit. It was insane. We did an audit, and these are companies that were posting. We did 4 straight CMOs, and two of the CMOs, we looked at theirs. They hadn't posted in months, and then we looked at their LinkedIn profile. They had 2 of them had 50 straight posts that had 0 comments.
Oh man.
Like, why are you even posting? And guess what? When you dig into the likes, guess who's liking it? Employees. Like, go put that shit on your intranet. Like,
Yeah.
I just feel like marketers are just sleeping on LinkedIn. So I feel like we still have a lot of work to do on LinkedIn organic, but certainly LinkedIn paid is something that we're moving into and doing for our clients as well too. I think the tough part that a lot of people see with LinkedIn paid is it's expensive, and
Sure.
because they're running the same terrible banner ads, they're like, the results aren't worth it. I'm like, well, look at your ads. Like, they're not how people post natively in LinkedIn. Instead, they're in some like weird other spot. So
Cool.
that would be my kind of like 2 cents, is like, I think it's just that the platform right now is like, and I think, man, B2C, dude, if you're a B2C influencer, like in fitness or nutrition, I think you can crush on LinkedIn right now too.
Interesting. I've not heard that in terms of B2C, so that's interesting. And have you got, on that
For
note,
sure.
Jake, like you say, there are so many companies, so many sales reps, so many business professionals posting on LinkedIn the same dull, boring, informal content. Have you got any tips for anyone listening to up their LinkedIn game, to
Oh, I've
help
got
them put
tips
out
for
some
days.
inspirational content? I know we're getting close to time, but it'd be awesome to learn
No,
some
yeah,
more
no,
advice.
yeah, we're good. So
Cool.
I've definitely got a bunch of tips for you guys. And some I think will be easier than others. So just right out of the gate, there's, just understand a few things. LinkedIn doesn't want you to send people off LinkedIn. So every time you post a link in the post itself, right, you are destroying your organic reach. There's a company that they just literally A/B tested this, and the clicks for the link were 2x, and the reach, I can't remember, was like 5x, because you just say, hey, here's our insights around this thing. And if you want to read more, the links in the comments. So companies need to start doing that immediately. The other thing that companies have to do is, LinkedIn just released a feature 2 weeks ago where company pages can actually request people who are in, like, whoever you want, but specifically in your target audience, right? So think about that. So let's say you sell into VPs of marketing. Every day, your company page should be requesting 25 VPs of marketing. If you do that every day, including weekends, that's 7,000 VPs of marketing that by the end of the year are going to be following. So you got to increase your follower count of the right people, not just current employees and former employees and friends of friends, right? If you do those 2 things, you're going to see an immediate blip. You start to produce content that's not just a reshare, that actually has some insights. You start adding more of your relevant buyers. You start doing those 2 things, you're going to see a blip. So
That's
that would be my like super tactical, get it done, way to make it happen.
very, very good. Yeah, I've just started enjoying that feature on company pages now for this show, actually, where you can invite people to follow. So that's a nice little addition. Cool. Okay. So it sounds like LinkedIn's your number one channel to
Yeah.
harness right now, Jake, which
Yeah.
sounds
It
just
is, just because of the traffic, the organic traffic right now. I feel like it's so good, but it's more of, again, it's been like, I really feel like YouTube is still a place where we can go and crush, so I'm excited to start to get more involved there.
cool, man. Okay. And on that note, moving away from digital, have you got any golden nuggets of advice, Jake, that you could give to anyone listening who's recently started their business or is thinking of starting a business? Just on strategies to follow or best
Yeah,
practices?
definitely. Yeah. So we talked about a few of them, right? To just hone, like, don't worry about, have a smaller target market potentially in the beginning and get really good at that. And then, kind of like let that drive your growth. But I think the other thing is, I just, and this just kind of came to a head this last year as we had grown, quickly. I almost doubled headcount in 2019. And so for me, I didn't
Amazing,
really
man.
quite, thank you. I appreciate it. But I didn't quite realize what that would do to culture. And so they've got all these new people, new personalities. And I think I had done a really poor job of saying, look, yeah, we've got these value statements. And then what we did is I created a whole program in September, or maybe it's early October, called the Scaled Difference. And what it was, it's a commitment to our clients that if you work with us, we're going to change the trajectory of your company. And if you work with Scaled as an employee, we're going to help to change the trajectory of your career, as an employee. And we created these different modules. So it's like, who is Scaled? What does this business unit do? What is this? There's all these different communication things that have started to pop up. So Scaled Different sessions we started. And then we created kind of a list of behavioral norms, which is like, how do you show up at Scaled? And so there's things like working together, honoring your commitments, and some of these other things. And so I think take the time to do that. Take the time to say, okay, our values. And if one of your values is collaboration. So how do I as an employee actually collaborate? Like what does the norm look like? And so for us, like collaboration, I can point to things like working together, and working together has like this, and this, and honoring commits. So you can be a good collaborator if you're doing these things within working together and you're honoring your commitments, which looks like this. So give people kind of a code that they can live by, and take some time to write that out. And it just has made a super, super huge impact. The amount of conversations I can just point to, like, look, this is not how we do business at scale. This is not honoring your commitments. This is not how we do it. Or on the flip side, like, oh my gosh, and so now every week in our weekly meeting, people nominate someone, and every quarter we pick one or two of the norms, not the values, the norms, the behaviors, to then highlight people. And so we don't nominate based on like a job performance. We're nominating to try to drive it home based on, norms performance.
I like that. Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
All right, Jake. And is there any particular habits that you can recommend for entrepreneurs or people thinking of starting their own business that they should follow to ensure that they're going to become a success? So whether it's putting in the daily activity, whether it's posting regularly on LinkedIn, whether it's creating a good culture for their company.
Obviously there's a lot. I've talked, I think, about some of these habits. I think the most important habit is the ability to leave all the different stress of your company behind when you're having one-on-ones with people. As someone who owns your business, look, I'm constantly thinking about payroll, invoicing, so-and-so is dropping the ball. This person is when you own a company as you grow and scale, those things don't go away. They exacerbate if there's an issue, or you've got different flavors of the same problem. And so I think, you have to really train yourself. And I don't think I'm great. I think I'm okay at this. It's something I certainly want to improve on, is you've got to leave every conversation behind. And so I'm sitting here talking to Sam, we're talking about this one thing, and leave all the other things that I'm thinking about or previous experiences behind you. And I think as a leader and as an entrepreneur, if you grow and scale, the more that you can be present and be focused in every little micro conversation, people will get a lot more from you, as opposed to kind of feeling this like frustration or other things from the other shit you got going on in your day to day.
That is an amazing business growth secret, and it's much easier than said than done. I can assure you that, so. But it's very, very true. Awesome, Jake. So everyone, you've been listening to Sam's Business Growth Show, where we interview business leaders, experts, and entrepreneurs from across the globe. We find out their story, how digital marketing has helped them along the way, and their exclusive tips and insights to help you skyrocket your own business. Jake, really appreciate you coming on the show, man. How can people connect with you? Tell us a bit more about your business and the best way to get in touch with yourself.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So yeah, like I said, LinkedIn, obviously, that would be remiss of me if I didn't say that. So it's just Jake Dunlap on LinkedIn. You can always email me at jake@skaled, SKALED.com. And, look, what we do is, we help organizations around growth challenges. And so that could be around people-related issues, process-related issues around demand generation or sales technology and marketing technology. All of those things go into building a modern sales and marketing, organization. And so if your organization is thinking about different challenges you're having within your marketing or sales organization, whether it's people, process, or technology related, then, myself, the team, we're always down to have a conversation, talk best practices. And then we just launched a new group. I've got four full-time people in it now, where we're doing this kind of LinkedIn strategy work for companies that we're really seeing. If you're talking about modern marketing, modern demand gen, LinkedIn, if you're in B2B in particular, and like I said, I think there's a big opportunity for B2C too. there's a big opportunity for you to leverage LinkedIn. And so we've got a group of people that's working with executives at companies, sales reps and sales teams at companies, and marketing departments, helping them to basically optimize their digital presence. So if that's something that's interesting to, get at me.
Thanks, Jake. The show is sponsored
Cool.
by webchoiceuk.com, helping businesses grow with results-driven digital marketing, SEO, conversion-focused web design, and complex web and mobile applications. Really appreciate it, Jake. It was awesome to have you on.
Awesome, man. Thank you. I appreciate it, Sam.
Subscribe today for more digital marketing, sales, and business growth tips from the experts.